my, is it hot out. The old truck said 36 degrees out. That's hot for a Canadian, real hot. What is that, 100? 100 on the other side of the thermometer? Somewhere around there? Maybe more, I don't know, I don't care, it's hot, it's too hot. But anyway, same day today as the video show I made this morning, my first day back. And I'm gonna share with you guys a quick short story, right? That makes me kind of laugh in a way, and also makes me shake my head. I normally wouldn't share just because, why? But apparently this person threatened me with a YouTube channel or something. So if a video comes up with me on it somewhere, and there's enough people here watching, somebody might see it eventually. I don't know, I don't know if it exists. Apparently this is on video and it should be entertaining, and if it is, well, here's my version of the story, just in case. So there's a narrow passage called Grappler Inlet, and that goes from the wide open Pacific into this bay where we keep our boats tied up. Many boats are tied up at private docks in there. And this narrow, there's kayakers from all over the world come to this particular area to go kayaking, all the Broken Island group out there. And we'll be coming in our boats, and the passage is something like, I don't know, 70 yards across maybe, by probably 400, 500 yards long. And you come through there, and quite often there'll be a smaller boat, maybe a couple kayakers or something in the inlet. And they'll generally go off to the side and we'll slow down somewhat and keep on going. I mean, let's face it, those people are paddling out in 10-foot, 6-foot swells, right? It's the ocean. There's waves in the ocean. But anyway, so I'm blasted through at the end of my day, and the trees are overhanging there. I just noticed underneath the trees, this guy tucked off to the side, some kind of one of those custom built wood laminated canoes with a dog on the top of the bow. And I slowed down, and I even moved so far to the left. I remember looking down the bottom thinking, oh shit, I'm gonna bottom out, my propellers are too far over. So I got past him and I resumed gas, sped up till the farthest point I could sped up, where we got to slow right down for courtesy for other people's docks. So I slowed down. Hotter than hell, I'm beat up since 4:45. And I'm sitting in my boat, just tied up, just sit down. Finally gonna just sit down. And I'm sitting on my phone, I've got Wi-Fi down there now, so I'm texting Sarah, and all of a sudden I hear this voice out of nowhere, because nobody's on the dock. My other two partners are still out on the water. And I hear this, I want your effing numbers. I'm like, what? Huh? Where's this voice coming from? And I look to my left, and right there, like right there, here's this dude, I don't know how old he is, having a clue. Over 40 anyway, not a small guy. And it's the guy in the canoe. And he paddled all the way over. He goes, did you just come in? I'm like, yeah? I want your effing numbers, you effing asshole, or whatever he's saying to me. I'm looking at it, and then he kind of paddled on my side like he was coming around the bow of the boat. I'm like, what'd you say? What did you say? What? You just about effing swamped me. I'm like, what? And I got it all on video. I want your numbers. And then I realized he's actually serious. This guy's serious. He seriously is paddling over to me to come on to me at the private dock of my boat. And I went, I don't think anybody swamped you, and I actually slowed down. I slowed down for you. Yeah, we didn't slow down enough. He's freaking out. And then I go, well, by the looks of it, you didn't get swamped. Did you get swamped? You almost swamped me. And he went on a bit of a rant, said some expletives to me, and then he was paddling up around the front of my bow to the dock. Like he was gonna climb on the dock, we're gonna get into it. And I'm actually thinking to myself, holy shit, this isn't happening, no way. And then, unfortunately, I've always had this problem all my life. I'll admit it, I've never been able to walk away if or when somebody has been intentionally coming on to me, as in getting aggressive. You know, sure, if there's some of those absolute ridiculous drunken people or whatever, it's easy too, but when somebody's going out of their way, coming on to me to possibly physically get into it, I can't help myself. I've never been able to walk away from it. Sorry, nobody's perfect, I just haven't. I'll tell you my life story some other time and you'll understand why. So anyways, I'm thinking to myself, this is crazy. Well, okay, I'm kind of into it, let's do this. So I got off the boat and walked around the dock and I looked at him and I go, so you're making the choice to come on this dock right now, are you? I go, this should be a very interesting choice for you. And he kind of looked at me And I guess he realized that I was game, and he changed his mind. So he turned away off, we backed away from the dock a little bit. And then he goes, I got your numbers. I got it all in video. I got it all in video. I'm like, really? Are you gonna turn it into the police and tell them that a wave went underneath your canoe? Like an actual wave went under your canoe? Right? And he started paddling away, and then he goes, I've got a channel. I got a YouTube channel. This is all going on the YouTube channel. And then I realized, okay, this guy's right out to frickin' lunch. Of course, I had to give him a couple other zingers. And I said to him, well, tell me what the channel name is. Is it called A Pussy in a Canoe? Or I am now mentally deranged because of a wave went underneath my canoe. Anyway, there's my short version, all right? And it was kind of amusing, but it was not that amusing for a minute when you think this larger guy, not that large doesn't mean anything, but somebody's who could be a handful is going to come onto this dock right now and we're gonna get into it. Now he's around. I'm like, holy shit, crazy, wild. But anyways, it didn't go down. But anyway, I don't know what this guy's YouTube channel is. I haven't a clue what he got on video, but apparently he did. And if you guys ever see something on there with somebody telling somewhat of a fib story, you got the first hand version from me now, okay? And I did the YouTube search, pussy in a canoe, and I didn't find him. Oh well, whatever. Anyway, my phone should be charged up now. I'm gonna get on with reading that. It looked to be a lengthy email that a woman wrote in to me to share with all of you. She's been sitting there for a while and claims to be sitting on a whole pile of knowledge. So let's get into it and see if I can last doing it without melting. All right, here's the phone. I should have enough juice in this. It's kind of funny, there's a lot of people there who are just naturally miserable, you know? It's kind of sad to watch, especially when they're in paradise. Especially on boats too. A lot of people get stressed out on boats, I don't know why. And a lot of people blow a gasket from a wave in their boat. And I don't understand that either, especially in the Pacific Ocean. You know what, the other couple weeks ago I had a couple out and we were towing my Zodiac behind the boat along shore. And all we had to do is go out that inlet, hang right, go down the rocky coastline and cut in this little passage to go to where I like to dig clams to get oysters. And there's a couple guys fishing, a few boats fishing. And those are wide open rollers from the open Pacific coming in that way. So we're talking, you know, 6 foot, it's a nice calm day, probably 6 foot big rollers. And then you're gonna have the wakes from boats and the wind and the chop. And I go by, my stern's kind of down because I'm going slow, dragging the Zodiac. And you see this guy just making a big song and dance with his arms and going like this to, you know, as in, I know exactly what he's doing. He's a male Karen blowing a gasket because a wave is about to hit and rock his boat a little bit. It's amazing. People are amazing. I can't imagine, try to picture being one of those people who gets mad at a wave and owning a boat. Do you understand how angry and how often a person would pull a snap sandwich if a wave made them blow a gasket and they were a boat owner? Oh my God. It's a crazy world. So there's my funny semi-rant, amusing stories of some of the emotionally affected, weak people in our society today. Too many of them. They gotta smarten up. Think common sense. Smarten up. Now listen to this. This is titled Some Info That May Interest You. Dear Steve, there have been so many times I've thought about sharing what I know with you, but I wasn't sure what you would make of it, or whether people were ready to hear it, much less where to start. I'm a very private person, live in relative isolation, so please don't give my name. Perhaps just call me the Scottish lady. All right. So where to start? I'm in my early 50s, and I come from the UK, and I've had many teachers in my lifetime, and only one of them human. Yes, at the risk of sounding like a mental patient, you read that right the first time. What I'm going to share with you is the knowledge handed down to me from many sources, my teachers, none of which have a dog in this fight and have no reason to lie to me or to try to mislead me. When I first went to learn the oral traditions / teachings of Kabbalah from my first, last, and only human teacher, we stared into each other's eyes for a very long time until the image of our physical bodies fell away and the true image of our souls was revealed. My teacher, although then in his late 70s, was the epitome of the blue-eyed Aryan. When I looked upon the true face of his soul, there was an elderly aborigine sitting in front of me. He later told me he knew I had another name and asked what it was and if I was willing to share that with him. I shook my head no. And looking a little hurt, he asked me why. I told him that many years before, when I first met my second teacher, here comes a goat, I had introduced myself and asked their name. They replied before abruptly leaving, "There be power in names." I know this is not the first time you've heard this, and it was the first valuable lesson this teacher taught me. You would do well to take it to heart. I thought about this statement for some time, feeling troubled and somewhat smarting over their cult retort before remembering that when performing on an exorcism, one of the first orders of business is to find out the name of the demon or evil entity afflicting the victim. And this is because there is indeed power in names. Once you have the name of the demon, you can then call it by name, demanding that it leaves because you now have power over it. It makes me wonder if this is one of the reasons why the powers that be always demand that name, information, first for anything and everything, as a means to take away or try to diminish our power. When I relayed this to my human teacher, I'll call him the Aborigine, although he was a white man, he smiled and nodded before telling me that he was from the Fenlands, and there, in that region, when he was a boy, it was tradition that you always used your middle name, not your first, and that you were known to everyone by your middle name for that very reason. There be power in names. Only a trusted inner circle knew that information. As for the Sabe, they are everywhere. Here in the UK, there are fewer in England now, simply because it is so densely populated, but they still have a big populations and territories in the wild places. The Highlands of Scotland and some parts of Wales and Northumbria that I know of. I've heard two origin stories with regard to the Sabe from two different sources, which are interesting with regards to what I was taught of the Jewish mysticism, the oral tradition of the Kabbalah by the Aborigine. Both stories have been handed down from the ancestors of two non-human teachers, Teacher 3 and Teacher 4, both of which fervently believe their version is correct and that the other version is the result of the other being either mistaken or misinformed. For the record, I asked teacher number 5 if they knew which version was correct. Their answer: truth is a three-edged sword. My truth, your truth, and what really happened. Think about this sum. It may help you later. Version 1, Teacher 3. Adam, the first man, was a violent, controlling bully who often attempted to assert his power by beating his first wife, Lilith, into submission. She was having none of this as they were created equal, and since Adam was not admonished for this behavior and it was unlikely that he would see the error and his ways and change, and since all was not happy, good or perfect in paradise, she left. The Sabe are therefore the offspring of Lilith and an angel. They were the first race of humans who lived in the land of Nod. This version is backed up by the teachings of the priesthood in the Kabbalistic oral tradition, as far as Lilith being Adam's first wife and him being abusive, hence her leaving the garden, and goes a long way to explain why there are two creation stories in the Bible, the first one of which does say that the man and woman were created equal. Questions and thoughts. Number 1, it also would explain why the church went out of its way to demonize Lilith, consorting with angels. Number 2, it could explain the assertion of the Teacher 3 that God created Eve as he was dissatisfied with the first race of men as his divine plan and not gone to plan. Number 3, being the offspring of Lilith and an angel, they had divine abilities. I was told by Teacher 5 about the Great War of the Eldar. I was told that in ancient times we were much more spiritually advanced on a higher frequency, and that angels and giants walked among us, as well as many other non-human tribes. Numerous factions of the Fae, the Wolfmen, the giant insectoids, the Sabe, the Greys, etc. I immediately asked about the Greys, as up until then I had understood why. I understood they were extraterrestrial. I was told that they had the technology for extraterrestrial travel, but they were in fact one of many Earth races and were interdimensional rather than extraterrestrial. I was told that they had sided with the Star People invaders and were now little more than slaves to them. Like many of the other races, when the fall happened and we humans were forced into a lower frequency, some peoples and cultures managed to escape through portals into parallel and pocket dimensions, their shamans and magicians / priesthood created and some protected themselves by going into the underground places. The Greys were one of the races that went to live underground, but I digress. As far as I understand, the Star People were not the ones who needed us humans here on this planet. And B, I have no idea whether the ones who seeded or created us were the Elohim or the Anunnaki, as described in the Sumerian cuneiform, or some other race. I was told that they, the Sky People, came from the great snake in the sky with one goal: to rule and enslave mankind. However, they were basically just ignored or the subject of amusement by pretty much all the races, who found their violent and negative mentality very odd and backward. I was told that we were very advanced back then, both spiritually and technology-wise, much more so than we are now, and had good trade relations with all the Earth races. Apparently, Earth history has been restarted several times since the fall, no doubt. If at the end of this you haven't dismissed me as a completely insane or stunningly full of shit, maybe I'll write you again and share some more passed down from my mother's side about the last time history was restarted, the mud flood. Apparently, every time humankind advances spiritually or technologically to the point where we begin to discern the true nature of our rulers and the reality of our situation and what they have done to us, some deliberately staged calamity or apocalyptic event occurs in which millions of us die or are harvested by the Star People, and the remaining few survivors are literally knocked back to the Stone Age and are so traumatized by all they have seen and experienced that they are almost zombie-like. Their minds unable to function on automatic pilot and easily suggestible. In short, a good little slave. Doesn't that describe us to the T right now? Good little slaves. So, to the Great War. The priesthood, human, at the time was very advanced, and the planet looked very different. There was no moon in the sky. The Sky People apparently built and towed it into place later after the fall. Yep, as if I didn't already sound completely bonkers, but humor me for now, I'm only passing on what I was told. The sun at the time also rose in the west and set in the east. By the priesthood, I think it is safe to assume we are talking about civilizations such as Atlantis, Mu, the Mayans, pyramid builders, and so on. I surmise this because Teacher 5 recognized the name of Thoth, T-H-O-T-H, when I inquired with regard to the priesthood and exclaimed delightedly, "You do understand." Yep, you guessed it. This is where things get a little weird, as if what I've told you already doesn't sound completely insane. There are those in the priesthood that were increasingly drawn to the darkness. This is apparently a universal balance, dual and opposite, light and dark, male and female divine. It is said that the goddess Sophia / Gaia / Mother Earth, who resided at the galactic center with the other aeons, became so enamored of her vision for this world that she became lost in the dreaming and inadvertently flung herself out into the void, eventually cooling and solidifying to become this world. In the process, however, she had crashed into one of the arms of the Milky Way, spawning a race of creatures which were never supposed to be part of her creation. They have extremely long lifespans. To us, that may seem eternal. The Gnostic accounts describe some of them as looking like aborted fetuses. Greys, perhaps, or could it be the Elohim, Anunnaki? I still have so many questions. It is said that they do not possess a divine spark or soul like we do, and whilst incredibly advanced now, they lack the power to create anything. They can only copy. For this reason, they have an unnatural hatred and jealousy of and for humankind, and do not have our best interests at heart. The darkness that some of the priesthood had become drawn to was not the feminine divine aspect. It was something older, something ancient and angry and filled with hatred that had long festered out there in the void of our abyss, in the void or abyss. Desiring power and authority, wealth and so on, the hearts of a few of the priesthood had become corrupted, and slowly but surely they discovered the ability to hear and communicate telepathically, mind speak, with the darkness, and in their lust for power they called out to it. It was then that the Sky People came, along with terrifying dark entities whose powers rivaled even those of the angels and the giants. We all have light and dark within us, and according to every teacher I've ever had, with the exception of the Aborigine, who I didn't get the chance to discuss this with, every voice and decision we make is a choice for the lighter, the dark. And I've heard that numerous times from many people not connected. I believe that to be true. The Star People found such allies amongst all the races. You might know them as, for want of a term you will understand with respect to humans, Satanists, or those human clans or people with darkness and evil in their hearts. Dirty Sabe, dirty wolfmen, the Greys, the insectoids, even factions of the Fae, who are not all cute Tinkerbell-type spirits, to name but a few. It never ceases to amaze me the sheer idiocy of ignorant humans who deliberately go looking for things/creatures or experiences they know nothing about and they do not understand. Make no mistake, there are some factions of the Fae that have such hatred for mankind they wouldn't hesitate to eat your face off if you were dumb enough to go looking for them. Don't even get me started about those idiots who go whooping and tree knocking. No wonder the vast majority of other Earth races view us as such complete and utter retards. At the time, we were not afraid of death, even though we generally lived for much longer than we do now. We understand that it was merely a discarding of our physical body, and our divine spark simply returned to join with the source of the Creator or Creator, bringing back everything we had learned. And that after a period of rest and healing and helping, we then had the option to return to learn and experience more. So initially we ignored the Star People and their threats, and if anything, just found their ignorance amusing. Then the disappearances started, and there were stories of horrific atrocities and tortures being carried out, and whole villages being forced to watch these horrors, where their loved ones were beaten, tortured, or torn apart in front of their families, one by one, until the tribes submitted or swore allegiance to the Star People. Alliances were formed of dark and light forces, and the Great War of the Eldar Forest began. NB. You may be interested to know that those iconic plateaus you see in the spaghetti westerns that look like mountains with the tops chewed off, I was told that these are in fact the petrified tree stumps of the once great trees of the Elder Forest that were hewn down by giants, angels, and trolls of the dark forces in the Great War of the Eldar. I've never actually had the opportunity of seeing or visiting for myself, but I was told by Teacher 5 that the reason that they're here, and in places such as the Giant's Causeway, that the rocks seem to erode in hexagonal shapes, is because they are in fact giant plant cells, the only hexagonal cell structures you tend to find in nature. Excuse me. Imagine the complete and utter devastation of a planet's ecosystem and landscape. Entire tribes were wiped out. Death on an unimaginable scale, widespread fear and famine, and you have the aftermath of the fall. It was said that the Star People had infiltrated even the strongholds of light, such as Atlantis. Like the Fae, they have the ability to present themselves as human, to glamour, i.e. we see a human when we look at them, but glamoring. To create this illusion is one of their abilities, like mind speak. After the fall, many of us were, for want of a better term, shell-shocked or suffering from PTSD, and had lost our ability to mind speak, heal, communicate with animals and the earth. We were quickly captured and enslaved. The Star People, and this is backed up by the Emerald Tablets, systematically infiltrated the strongholds of light by murdering people in positions of power and taking on their identities. What was left of the priesthood at the end, who managed to escape, called upon the rushing waters, the flood, in order that the ancient temples did not fall into the hands of the agents of darkness. As far as I'm able to understand, this is the only way to deny them the access to the halls of Amenti and the Brotherhood of Nine. I was told that Thoth and the survivors of the priesthood in Atlantis escaped to Egypt, where he was subsequently known by the name Hermes and was very much respected and revered. What does this do with the Sabe? Teacher told me that the ones known as Dirty Sabe are the descendants of the ones drawn to the darkness that were allied with the Star People during the Great War. They and their descendants are fallen now, like us, and they hate us for it. I was also told that periodically the Star People came back and abduct various races. The two favorite choices, humans and the Sabe. I was told that the Sabe that are taken all now have machines in them which allow the Star People to control them. They return from time to time with the Star People when they are experimenting or harvesting humans for food, and are often dropped into an area where they are abducting humans from to strike fear into our hearts. Teacher told me that the machines inside have irrevocably changed them, so they are no longer human. Interesting, eh? I took this to mean they no longer have a soul, or have lost their divine light somehow. When I discussed the subject of AI and stuff like transhumanism with him, he shook his head and was deeply troubled. He told me that if what had happened to the Sabbath was anything to go by, we should never accept any kind of different DNA or technological implants, no matter what the powers, abilities, or increased strength and speed or longevity we are promised. In short, nothing they could possibly offer us was worth trading for a divine spark or soul. He then went on to wonder if that was why they, the Star People, seemed intent on convincing us that the Creator did not exist and there was nothing after our physical body dies. If you don't believe in God, the Source, the Great Spirit, the Creator, much less the human soul, then the notion that implanting some technology so you can access the internet and have a Marvel comic book like superpowers and live longer probably looks like you're getting a great deal. With regard to transhumanism, he told me that when the Star People first came, they created all manner of monsters. I think kraken, sirens, mermaids, minotaurs, centaurs, fauns, goatmen, harpies, the stuff of myth and legend. Yeah, they were real. In the Bible, as well as the apocryphal books, Enoch/Jubilees, etc., and again in Genesis 6 before the flood or fall of Atlantis. It has the bit about they sinned with the birds and animals and fish, etc. There truly is nothing new under the sun, as the Bible says. Everything that is occurring now has all happened before, and unless we can put a stop to the cycle permanently, it will all happen again ad nauseum. Word to the wise. Your physicist who wrote in, I laughed my socks off, but please don't judge me too harshly. It's not the first time I've heard a version of this story. I'm about to enlighten you as to what happened. The physicist encountered one of the dirty Sabbath, and he didn't get dragged through a portal. More on portals later. If you read the account back, I think I'm right in remembering that he saw the Sabbath jump and inexplicably disappear. The Sabbath jumped up through the hatchway of a cloaked ship. That's why he seemed to disappear. Subsequently, informed or realizing that he had been seen, the Sabbath jumped back down, dragged the physicist on board, knocked him out, memory wiped him, and then apparently, this one has a wacky sense of humor, flew him around the planet a few times, hence all the texts, and dropped him off sufficiently far away from where he had been abducted from to make sure whatever screen memory the physicist had implanted did not tally with his actual physical surroundings. He was probably nearby watching and laughing his ass off while the guy was freaking out and retracing his steps. And of course, what does the seemingly intelligent human do? Instead of taking photographs or getting that evidence on camera ASAP and sending it to as many people / uploading it to the internet as insurance, like an idiot, he contacts the phone company. The call would have been immediately red flagged by whoever or whatever agency was listening in, especially if this guy had access at this time or had previously had access to anything like a nuclear facility. And surprise, surprise, his phone then gets wiped and the evidence is lost. I don't know, it's a bold thing to say. I mean, who knows, right? I don't know. I know one thing. If some being is of that much power, looking at us be like looking at an ant, and would I go out of my way to knock an ant out, erase its memory, and take it for a spin around the planet twice? Probably not. I'd probably just squish it, bury it under a stump, and be done with it, right? You never know. That's my thoughts when you said that. I feel so frustrated by the naivety and idiocy of humankind at times. Most of us are walking around blind, deaf, dumb, and indifferent. We really need to wake up and get our act together. With regard to portals or doorways, they've always been there. It is not unheard of for hapless humans to inadvertently wander through a doorway into one of the other worlds, realms, or the Fae or other races, and see something strange. There are also entrances to the kingdom of shadows, where all manner manner of predators you do not want to encounter exist. Quick side note, when he's jumping up and down, you watch it get translucent from the bottom up. So that wouldn't mesh up with you saying he jumped into a ship, because it wasn't from the top down, he was disappearing. So a few tips for hunters and hikers when you're out in the wilds. Talking about something by invoking their name is likely to draw that creature to you. Remember, there be power in names. Never discuss the Fae in the forest, much less such things as the Wendigo. I call them the hungry ones. The Fae will not take kindly to it. In fact, it is considered a grave offense, and you will be likely followed home and plagued with bad luck and broken/damaged property. Machines, and they will mess with any animals you have until you will be struggling to hold on to your sanity, much less your farm or whatever. If I'm wandering in the wilds, I always take a pocket full of sweets, barley sugar, butterscotch, that type of thing, or I will buy some tobacco and put a little in homemade pouches I can leave as offerings or scattered sweets on the path to pacify their wrath if I somehow transgress. I also plant little stashes of edibles and leave gifts in tree hollows that I color code. There are rules to dealing with the Fae that you would be wise to follow. I can write up a list if you want me to write in again. I mentioned the Fae here, both because they too are well known for abductions, certain factions, which are not unlike alien abduction cases or experiences, but are in fact better known as or termed occult experiences, and also because there are stories in the Nordic and Celtic tradition that also make me wonder with respect to the Sabbae. There's a fraction of the Fae known as trolls. Yes, like the bridge trolls in the Three Billy Goats Gruff. They come in many shapes and sizes, but there's one type of troll that is described in the Nordic tales as very large, hairy, strong, and not very smart, who hated humankind and would throw large rocks or sticks at humans in their territory, or sometimes even eat the Vikings and their horses if they managed to capture them. Sound familiar? Could be a reference to Dirty Sabbae. Now, there's a point of honor for the Vikings to try to trick/capture these trolls, as they had powerful magics, including, but not limited to, the ability to magically disappear/camouflage or hide themselves at will. Sound familiar? NB. These trolls are often in the tales congregating around a fire where they are cooking food in the late afternoon before or close to twilight. Having captured their prize, the Vikings would then agree to exchange the trolls' freedom or release them in exchange for some powerful magic. In short, there was a mutual hatred there. Are you connecting the dots? Isn't it interesting that such a high percentage of so many blonde-haired, blue-eyed, Germanic/Scandinavian-looking folk mysteriously vanish from national forest and nature reserves every year, a great many of which are taken at 3 to 4 p.m. from areas associated with these hairy trolls with a pungent smell, be it boulder fields, forests, or in the vicinity of bridges over rivers, a few of this creature's favorite haunts if the tales are anything to go by. The Sabbae have long memories. Could it be that this faction of trolls in the Nordic tales, or another name like Yeti or Abominable Snowman that we have forgotten with the passage of time? Are the Sabbae then possibly one of the other Earth races or factions of the Fae, despite looking so human? I've been told that some of the ancient civilizations that vanished, such as the Picts, Aztecs, Mayans, and so on, are not dead. They watched the skies for signs and left to live in the underground cities before the sky people returned. Their descendants remain there to this day. Interestingly, there are some accounts of the Fae before they were demonized by the Christian church, where they were known to have had really good relations with the local peasant folk, even to the point where, like the Sabbae and the noble wolfmen you see depicted in Egyptian hieroglyphs, the Fae hid not just the peasant villagers, but the entire village, as invading armies of Normans and later Romans walked past or through the village completely unaware and oblivious to its existence. With regard to the doorways, if you see a shimmer like the haze or a shimmer in the desert, if you have a feeling of electricity in the air like a summer storm is about to erupt, if your hair stands to stand on end like static electricity, you are likely in the vicinity of a doorway or portal. Or if you feel like you've just walked through a giant cobweb and suddenly the woods are eerily silent and everything around has a gray and dull twilight feel to it, you need to stop immediately and back out of the way you came. Do not make a sound. Do not run around. Do not turn around. This place is the kingdom of shadows, and the land is perpetual twilight and a stronghold of the darkness, with all manner of entities that will bring your life to an excruciating end. Now the final word of warning. For some reason, a few years ago, all the doorways and portals clanged open, and not only can we not permanently shut them and seal them as before when we find them, but I have been reliably informed by members of the other races that many of the pocket dimensions and safe havens they used to inhabit are folding in upon themselves, and as a result, they've been forced back into our world. As a result, all manner of strange creatures are emptying out into this realm. This is very important. This is also true of the Kingdom of Shadows. Many of its inhabitants are emptying out into the wilderness or random places in human cities, hence all manner of strange sightings. It shows no sign of abating, which is probably why sightings of wolfmen, goatmen, shadow men, and all manner of strange creatures is increasing all the time, as well as the disappearance of human hunters, campers, or hikers, or missing persons in cities every year. But hey, I've just dumped a massive pile of crazy in your lap, so I probably sound as wacko as the rest of you. Anyhow, if I'm not canceled for sounding completely insane or stunningly full of shit, and you have questions or want to know more, by all means let me know and we'll try to figure this stuff out. Like Teacher 5 said, truth is a three-edged sword. Your truth, my truth, and what really happened. I believe that if enough of us pool our knowledge, somewhere in the midst of that we will find the truth. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of observing the absurdity of this shit show in silence. Time to speak up. Thanks for doing what you do and for keeping it real, the Scottish lady. All right, there's a lengthy, confident email. A lot of things in there that ring a bell. Isn't that right? A lot of people are probably going to be agreeing. A lot of people are going to be shaking their head and disagreeing. Just a bunch of points that I've heard before, that's for sure. Calling in Edgar and referring to Edgar as a potential idiot didn't go over well with me, only because I know him, created a relationship with him, I know who he is, where he's from, etc. That's fine. Very interesting. So, shared. If you want to share more, if I could ask you to share something, I would ask you to share all your teachers to go public into video with you. And quit being scared. What are you scared of? Alright? Why are you scared? Why do you hold your name back? I don't hold my name back. I'm not scared of shit. I'm not scared of death.